Good evening. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, liberty for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I want to welcome you to the April 19th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. My name is Susan Finch, and I'll be presiding as the hearing officer over tonight's cases. Let me start by introducing Mr. Brian Grady to my left. He's with the county's Development Services Department, and he will go over any changes we have for tonight's agenda. Mr. Grady.
Good evening, Ms. Finch. Again, for the record, Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services Department. We do not have any changes to tonight's agenda, so I'll go through the published withdrawals and continuances beginning on page 4 of the agenda. The first item is item A1, Major Mod Application 19-0521. This application out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A2, Rezonings PD 20-0286. This application is being withdrawn from the Zoning Hearing Master process. Item A3, Major Mod Application 20-1068. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the May 17th, 2020 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A4, Rezoning PD 20-1198. This application is being continued by the applicant to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A5, Rezoning PD 20-1377. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the July 26th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A6, Major Mod Application 21-0036. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A7, Major Mod Application 21-0038. This application has been continued by staff to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A8, Rezoning PD 21-0123. This application is being continued by staff to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A9, Major Mod Application 21-0169. This application is being continued by staff to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A10, Rezoning PD 21-0212. This application is being withdrawn from the Zoning Hearing Master process. Item A11, Rezoning PD 21-0220. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A12, Rezoning PD 21-0221. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A13, Rezoning PD 21-0222. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A14, Major Mod Application 21-0227. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A15, Rezoning PD 21-0297. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A16, Major Mod Application 21-0308. This application is being withdrawn from the Zoning Hearing Master process. Item A17, Major Mod Application 21-0310. This application out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A18, Major Mod Application 21-0312. This application has been continued by the applicant to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A19, Rezoning PD 21-0314. This application out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A20, Rezoning PD 21-0315. This application is continued by the applicant to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A21, Major Mod Application 21-0316. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A22, Rezoning PD 21-0318. This application has been continued by the applicant to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A23, Rezoning PD 21-0319. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A24, Rezoning Standard 21-0371. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A25, Rezoning Standard 21-0430. This application is being withdrawn from the Zoning Hearing Master process. Item A26, Rezoning Standard 21-0431. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 Zoning Hearing Master Hearing. Item A27, Rezoning Standard 21-0432. This application is being withdrawn from the zoning hearing master process. And finally, item 828, rezoning standard 21-0433. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the May 17th, 2021 zoning hearing master hearing. And that concludes all withdrawals and continuances.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Grady. I appreciate it. Let me start by going over tonight's procedures. Tonight's agenda consists of agenda items that require a public hearing to be held before a zoning hearing master prior to the final decision, which is made by the Board of County Commissioners. I'll conduct the hearing tonight as the zoning hearing master and will make a recommendation on each application 15 business days following tonight's hearing. That recommendation will then be sent to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners, who will make a decision at their public meeting. Our hearing tonight is informal. I will ask questions related to the direct testimony presented tonight. I'll call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate and necessary, and will decide all questions of procedure. Irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious evidence will be excluded. Any part of the evidence may be received in written form, and all testimony must be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used for the purpose of supplementing or explaining other evidence, but shall not be sufficient in and of itself to support a finding by me unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. Our order of presentation for tonight's hearing is as follows. Mr. Grady of the Development Services Department will provide a brief introduction to each agenda item. We'll then turn to the applicant. The applicant and their team has a total of 15 minutes for their presentation. Next up will be the Hillsborough County Development Services staff planner that was assigned to the case. They will have 5 minutes to discuss the county's findings. We'll then go to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will also have 5 minutes to discuss the application's consistency with the comprehensive plan. Next up, proponents. Anyone who would like to speak in support of the application, everybody combined has a total of 15 minutes. Also, when we go to opponents, the next category, anyone who would like to speak against an application, total opponent presentation time is 15 minutes. Next would be county staff. We'll go back to them for 5 minutes to take any testimony or comments, clarifications from the testimony we've heard tonight. And then finally, we'll go back to the applicant for rebuttal. The applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal of any issue they'd like to address. I don't think we'll have this issue tonight, but it was, if for those of you that are here to speak in favor or against an application, if there are a lot of you, you may want to appoint a speaker. If not, then we will just have a show of hands of how many people want to speak in favor or against. And I will divide that 15 minutes equally as best we can to try to keep the hearing moving. When you do come to speak, if you are either participating with us virtually or here in the room, when you come up, if you could always give us your name and address for the record. We are recording this hearing and we want to make sure we can tell from the transcript and the accuracy of that transcript that we know who is speaking. If you are here in the building, when you are done, if you could see Michael and Trey over here to my right, they're with the clerk's office, and sign in with your name and address and also the application number that you were speaking to. Let me now turn to the county attorney who will explain your legal requirements for oral argument that will govern your participation if you would like to speak at the Board of County Commissioners meeting, either Ms. Dorman or Mr. Clark.
Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is the time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present testimony and evidence. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will take a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at its June 8, 2021 land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the hearing master for each application. The hearing master will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight on May 10th, 2021. The Board of County Commissioners has established a policy that directs which rezoning and major modification applications are to be placed on the consent agenda of the board's land use meeting. applications that propose to add density outside the urban service area, and applications that would result in a failing level of service on a roadway are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. Applications which do not have a constituent recommendations of approval or consistent recommendations of approval or denial are also not qualified to be placed on the consent agenda. Please be advised that applicants and parties of record shall be required to submit a request for oral argument in order to address the board on these items. Any party of record wishing to address the board at its public meeting must execute and submit a request for oral argument form explaining why oral argument is necessary. Requests for oral argument must be responsive to the hearing master's recommendation. Therefore, such requests cannot be filed until after the hearing master has submitted her recommendation to the county on May 10th, 2021. Following this date, any party wishing to address the board at its public meeting will have 10 days to submit a request for oral argument to the clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. Therefore, for tonight's applications, if you wish to address the board at its June 8th, 2021 land use meeting, you must file your request for oral argument between May 10th, 2021 and the close of business on May 20th, 2021. While the board is not required to hear oral argument at its public meeting, the board can elect to hear oral argument from a party of record. A party of record is an individual who fits into at least one of the following four categories. First, an individual who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, an individual certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, an individual who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days prior to tonight's hearing. Or fourth, an individual who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Should the board elect to hear oral argument, parties of record will be eligible to address the board if their requests for oral argument are responsive to the hearing master's recommendation, and if they clearly set forth why oral argument is necessary to address at least one of the 4 outstanding issues laid out in section 10.03.04E of the Land Development Code. If the board elects to hear oral argument, the content of that argument shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It is the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board, and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at its public meeting is entered into tonight's record.
Thank you, Ms. Dorman. I appreciate it. As I mentioned, all testimony must be under oath. So if you plan to speak tonight, either in the room or virtually, if you could please stand and raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated. All right, Mr. Grady, we'll call the first case, please.
The first item is agenda item C1, rezoning standard 21-0242. The applicants are Thomas and Emily Mang. The request is a rezone from agricultural rural to commercial general with restrictions. Isis Brown will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right, is the applicant here?
I believe we have Hanley virtually too.
All right, thank you. Good evening.
Oh. Good evening. My name is Tumai of HTMI Inc. Address is 14031 North Delmabry Highway, Tampa, Florida 33618. I'm here representing the applicant, and also participating virtually is Hung Mai. The petition in front of you tonight is a request to rezone a parcel having folio 4379.0600 from AR to CG restricted with the following restricted uses: schools, drive-through banks, bowling alleys, drugstores, taverns, funeral homes, laundromats, fast food restaurants with drive-through windows, sexually oriented businesses, smoke shops, supermarkets, wedding chapels, ambulance services, and gas station. This CG restricted zoning was recommended to us in the rezoning pre-application meeting held October 28, 2020. The total land is 0.94 acres and the future land use is R9. It's located northwest of Edgewater Place Boulevard and West Waters Avenue. If you recall, in the March zoning hearing master, you instructed that we'd go back with the planning commission to discuss the compatibility and consistency concerns that they had. We believe that we have addressed them. If I could speak on policy 16.2 of the comp plan, which states gradual transitions of intensities between different land uses shall be provided for as new development is proposed and approved through the use of professional site planning, buffering, and screening techniques and control of specific land uses. We believed our proposed development does meet the intent of policy 16.2. In this conceptual plan that we submitted to the Planning Commission, the applicant is proposing a 20-foot buffer with type B screening along the property boundary to the north, east, and west. Additional trees will be planted and staggered to fill in any gaps of the existing trees and natural vegetation on site. There is also an existing 8-foot solid PVC fence along the west and north. In addition, the applicant is proposing a 6-foot high solid PVC fence along the east property boundary, which is adjacent to the entrance of the apartment complex. We feel that the solid PVC fence and the trees will provide a natural landscape and privacy to the residential development next door. In total, there will be a proposed setback of at least 80 feet from the north property boundary to the proposed building envelope, since we are proposing a stormwater retention pond, along with the 20-foot buffer, thus providing additional separation from the northern property boundary to the proposed building. In addition to the east, we are proposing 20 feet step back from the east property boundary. We feel these factors with the proposed restrictions, as I stated earlier, provide a gradual transition from the intensities between different land uses. Now, per policy 22.1, which talks about locational criteria, although the subject site does not meet locational criteria, the intersection of West Waters Avenue and Hanley Road is approximately 2,000 feet. Is approximately 2,000 feet east of the subject property. The proposed development, we feel, is compatible with the existing character of the surrounding area. If you look on the aerial, the subject site is right here, an intersection of Pinehurst Drive and West Waters Avenue, and then there is the intersection of Hanley Road and West Waters. As you can see, there are a lot of commercial uses along the West Waters corridor. In addition, well beyond the maximum allowed 1,000-foot node exists commercial establishments such as the Value Pawn Shop, Sunshine Animal Hospital, Tiny Feet Learning Center, Self-Storage, Progressive, Allstate, and the Waters Pediatric Clinic. I will submit into evidence individual photos of these establishments. Lastly, we believe the proposed development would be in keeping with the Town and Country Community Plan. We're creating opportunities for small businesses and especially retail businesses to thrive along the Hanley Road and Waters Avenue corridor. This area has a high concentration of Asian and Hispanic communities. There's a growing population from minority-owned businesses along West Waters Avenue. By allowing the proposed rezoning and development, it would further encourage these populations to grow and contribute to our economy. I will be submitting 98 letters of support for this petition. And to conclude, we do believe that the proposed justifications as we presented do in fact maintain with the character of the existing development and is compatible with the surrounding area. We received no objections from the review agencies. We concur with staff's finding of approvable, and we respectfully request your recommendation to approve this rezoning.
Let me ask you a couple of questions before you go.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the proposed use? What are you actually doing?
The proposed use is just retail, commercial use.
Okay. And so what you've restricted it to is what you won't do, but
Correct.
anything else under that CG that's not restricted, of course, is fair game. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
And can you put up your graphic again, the other graphic you showed with this site plan with the building envelope?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that white area? Is that just parking and,
Yeah, yes, the white area would be proposed parking.
okay. And so the qualifying intersection for locational criteria, how many feet away from that node are you?
Approximately 2,000, which is the Hanley Road, West Waters Avenue intersection.
So Pinehurst, I guess, to the west is not a qualifying intersection.
Pinehurst is an intersection, but the planning commission stated that it's not a qualifying intersection based on their comp plan.
Right. Okay. All right. Those are my only questions. If you could submit those into the record. Thank you. Development services.
Good evening, Isis Brown Development Services. This is rezone case number 21-0242. Was continued from last month's hearing, to address or readdress the areas of inconsistency from the Planning Commission. As we know, the request is for a rezone of the total parcel totaling approximately 0.94 acres from existing agricultural AR zoning district to the proposed commercial general CG with restrictions. The applicant, she did a great job in breaking everything down. Was just reiterating what's in the report. The property is located along West Waters Avenue with the scenic corridor. The subject property is designated a residential Res 9, sorry. The site is located in an area comprised of low, mid, and high density urban, residential, and commercial office uses. A majority of the area on the south side of Waters Avenue has a flu category of mid and high density urban, residential, and office commercial. The flu categories mentioned can potentially permit commercial, office, and multi-purpose uses that meet the locational criteria. The overall area is within the urban service area with publicly owned and operated potable water and wastewater facilities. The site is adjacent to properties zoned PD 00-024 and PD 71-026 to the north, PD 00-246 and AR to the east, PD 71-067 to the west, and CG PD-CG 88-0131 to the south. The applicant is proposing restricted uses. The applicant's proposed use restricting includes no fast food, restaurants with drive-thrus, gas stations, I'm so sorry. I'm losing my page. The The size and depth of the subject property in relation to other adjacent commercial uses will create a zoning development pattern that is consistent with the existing zoning and development pattern of the commercial uses and zoning district in the area. Based on the above consideration, staff finds that the proposed CG zoning is compatible with the existing zoning district and the development pattern in the area. Based on the above consideration, staff finds that the request is approvable and with the following restrictions. Commercial general uses will exclude schools, drive-through banks, bowling alleys, drugstores, taverns, funeral homes, laundromats, fast food restaurants with drive-through windows, sexually oriented businesses, smoke shops, supermarkets, wedding chapels, ambulance services, and gas stations. Since my presentations, I'm available for any questions.
You heard that the Planning Commission, even after the discussion with the continuance, still does not support the request based on locational criteria and a lack of transition. And so I just wanted you to go over for the record how the surrounding area or whatever your arguments are for overcoming the lack of commercial locational criteria in the area.
So and we agree with so along waters. Sorry. Along waters, there are a lot of commercial uses along there. To the east, I believe it is, there is a gas station. No, to the west, I'm sorry. BPO. There are a lot of commercial uses around that area, and it's consistent with the pattern of development around there. It's consistent, and that was really our grounds for.
Is that last statement?
Madam Hearing Officer, I would also add, as outlined in the report, I mean, we felt that if you look at the development standards required of the CG zoning, just with respect to buffering and screening, which the applicant outlined in their graphic, which is the required buffering and screening that they would have along the northern and eastern boundary, that in addition to the existing development pattern along there, and the fact that the eastern boundary has an access drive, and then to the east of that, undeveloped parcel that appears to contain mostly wetlands, that with so those issues really then the only impacted area from our perspective from compatibility was to the north. Again, they're required to provide a 20-foot buffer. They're also required to provide a 2-to-1 setback for a structure height over 20 feet. In addition, along that common boundary, half that boundary is consisting of recreational uses for the townhome development. Therefore, there's 4 homes that are mostly impacted by that. They have an existing over 20-foot setback. So we felt with that, with a 20-foot buffer and their buffering and screening and the limitations of uses that it did provide for proper transition.
All right, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated Residential 9 on the future land use map. It is located within the urban service area within the limits of the Town and Country Community Plan. Future Land Use Element Policy 16.1 includes language about limiting commercial development and residential land use categories to a neighborhood scale. The intent of this policy is to protect less intense uses such as residential uses and to locate more intensive uses in appropriate locations. This site is on the edge of the commercial node where uses should be transitioning to less intense uses. A rezoning to commercial general with restrictions would not support this policy direction. This proposed rezoning does not meet the specific criteria of Future Land Use Element Policy 16.2, which identifies the use of gradual transitions of intensities between different land uses. The applicant has stated that the prohibition of the uses, which were listed earlier, and setbacks along the northern, eastern, and western sides of the property, as well as the utilization of landscape screening and a type B screening on the northern, western, and eastern edges, along with a 6-foot PVC fencing along the eastern boundary, would allow for a gradual transition between uses and fulfill the intent of 16.2. However, policy 16.2 states that professional site planning is also one of the methods used to achieve compatibility. As site plans are not submitted in this stage of the standard rezoning review process and take place after zoning approval when Planning Commission staff has concluded their review, there is unsatisfactory information to assess how the site will function as a whole with all of the proposed restrictions and mitigation measures. In this case, a planned development rezoning district is the appropriate rezoning process, and the mitigation measures would likely not be able to achieve the degree of compatibility needed to satisfy the compatibility concerns with adjacent residential uses. Furthermore, the future land use element policy 16.5 restricts higher intensity uses along arterials away from established neighborhoods. So the site is located along an arterial roadway. It is adjacent to residential properties, which present compatibility concerns. Goal 9 of the community design component calls for the creation of a commercial design standard in scale and design that complements the surrounding neighborhood. Policy 9-1.2 and Policy 9-1.3 of the community design component specifically calls for the avoidance of any development of strip commercial and that any new commercial zoning be located at activity centers and commercial redevelopment centers. Goal 12, Objective 12-1, Policy 12-1.3 of the commercial design component recognizes the need for development to be compatible with the existing character of the surrounding area, and development that is proposed in lower density residential areas should utilize the planned development rezoning process in order to fully address all impacts on the existing community. The subject property does not meet locational criteria, and 4 intersections were analyzed in the staff report. The closest intersection to the subject property is Edgewater Place, Boulevard, and Waters Avenue. Edgewater Place is not on the 2040 highway cost affordable map, and it does not meet the definition of a major local roadway per the comprehensive plan. A major local roadway must connect to at least 2 or more collector or higher roadways and be a primary access road to at least 500 dwelling units from a collector or arterial roadway. The second closest intersection is Waters Avenue and Pinehurst Drive. Pinehurst Drive is considered a major local roadway as it appears to be the primary access to over 500 homes. However, the subject property is outside of the 300-foot node formed at this intersection. Per future land use element policy 22.2, 75% of the site must fall within the node of a qualifying intersection to meet commercial locational criteria. The third intersection is Waters Avenue and Wilsky Boulevard. The segment of Wilsky Boulevard dead ends to the north and is not a qualifying intersection on the 2040 cost affordable map. The fourth intersection that was analyzed was Waters Avenue and Hanley Road. It is located approximately 2,000 feet east of the subject property. This is a qualifying intersection per the 2040 highway cost affordable map, but the subject property is beyond the maximum allowed 1,000-foot node. Per policy 22.2, 75% of the site must fall within the node of a qualifying intersection to meet commercial locational criteria. The applicant has submitted a waiver to commercial locational criteria, citing the commercial development pattern and the specific CG zone properties north and south along West Waters Avenue. However, future land use element policy 22.7 states that commercial locational criteria is not the only factor to be considered, and that factors such as land use compatibility must also be considered. The site is adjacent to a CG zone parcel. However, there are compatibility concerns with the proposed CG zoning in the adjacent residential properties. The proposed rezoning does not support the vision of the Town and Country Community Plan as stated in Goal 1, Goal 2, and Strategy 1. The goals focus on creating opportunities for small professional businesses and specialty neighborhood retail in a town center along the Hanley Road and Waters Avenue, as well as improving the appearance of the roadway corridor. The subject site is not located at either of the preferred town centers in the community, and a rezoning to CGR is inconsistent with the vision of the Town and Country Community Plan. Based on these recommendations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning is consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
I have a quick question, and it's about those commercial properties across the street from the subject property.
Sure.
Looking at the land use map, it looks, I couldn't tell the category. It's a residential category. Certainly it's a yellow. What category is that?
Yes, so that's residential 2, and I'm looking at the map now, and there seems to be all CG zoning across just right south of Waters Avenue. So the category is Res 2, and there is CG and RS3 zoning to the south as well.
So it's Res 2. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of an echo hearing you. You said it's Res 2?
Correct. It's residential 2 to the south.
Okay, and you would agree that all those properties across the street are all zoned CG? Do you know how long they've been there? How long that's been like that?
I'm not sure, but I will say that the subject parcel is surrounded by planned development zoning. So there seems to be, at least to the north, there seems to be a precedent set with a planned development approach to zoning, which is, I believe, one of the reasons why staff stated in the report that the most appropriate approach here would not be a standard, but a planned development rezoning. So staff understands that there's standards to the south. I'm not sure about the history behind those, how that happened, but based on the current layout of the parcels and the zoning to the north, Planning Commission staff felt that based on comprehensive plan policies that a plan development would be more appropriate.
All right. And did you, in your conversations with Ms. Mai after the continuance, did you advise her that a plan development would be more appropriate? And if so, did you intimate that that would lead you to support the request?
Ms. Finch, I was not personally involved in those conversations, but typically, I will say typically, Planning Commission staff tries to communicate their concerns and the approach that the applicant should take early in the review process. So knowing that's our protocol, it seems that staff would have explained to the applicant early on in the process that that a plan development would be most appropriate, but I have to say I was not involved in those conversations.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's move on. So at this point, we'll call for anyone that would like to speak in support. Anyone in favor of this application? See no one in the room? No one online? Okay, same question. Anyone would like to speak in opposition to this project? Anyone opposed? No one in the room? No one online. All right. County staff, anything further?
Nothing further.
All right, Ms. Mai, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal. And I would like you to address the comments from Ms. Haley about the plan development, and what was your conversation with the Planning Commission when you talked to them about rezoning to a plan development to memorialize all of those conditions and so forth?
Yes, ma'am. To address the Planning Commission's comments about the PD rezoning, in our initial rezoning pre-application meeting in October, as I stated, staff recommended that we rezone the parcel to either CG restricted or CN restricted. We did offer a PD rezoning. However, based on their recommendation, we decided to go with the CG restricted
Was that the planning commission staff or development services? staff?
development services staff.
Okay.
Planning Commission did not state anything about the PD rezoning on the onset of the pre-application meeting. We did not know that that was their recommendation until we received the staff report from them, which is about a week before this hearing. Also, I want to state that there has been during the whole process, the review process, we have been working with 3 different planning commission staff. Therefore, it kind of inhibited our ability to reply to any of their concerns. We didn't know of the policy 16.2 concern until late into the review process. Therefore, we addressed it as best we could with providing the screening and buffering to the parcels to the north and east to separate them as best we could to mitigate the compatibility concerns. I also wanted to point out a few things. We spoke of the heavy commercial uses already existing in the development pattern of Waters Avenue. Directly adjacent to the subject parcel to the west is a Chevron station.
And that's in the plan development, right? The Chevron station?
Is it Zone PD? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And then next to the subject site, obviously, is the entrance to Edgewater Place Apartments. And adjacent to the site entrance is a large retention and wetland area. Adjacent to the wetland area, traveling east, is a huge public storage facility. Again, traveling east from the public storage, adjacent to that is a Progressive and a Waffle House. Directly behind the Waffle House is a huge BJ's department store. Next to the BJ department store is a GT credit union. Directly behind is the Save-A-Lot in a shopping center. And then next to the Hanley Road, Waters Avenue intersection is the Boston Market. Now, if you travel west towards the subject site from the Hanley Road, Waters Avenue intersection, you'll see the Bank of America in the in the shopping center. You'll see adjacent to the Bank of America is an Amscot. Next to the Amscot is a Mike's Auto Center. And next to that is the Life Storage, public storage. Adjacent to Mike's Auto Center is the West End at 7610 apartment complex. And then within the professional office building, office center is the pediatric, Waters Pediatric Center.
You got about 30 seconds left.
And then traveling west again, you'll see strip centers, housing Tiny Feet Learning Center, Sunshine Animal Hospital, Value Pawn Shop, and a Vietnamese restaurant. So as you can see, there is a heavy commercial development along this roadway. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 21-0242 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item C2, rezoning standard 21-0429. The applicant is William L. Brown III. The request is to rezone from ASC 1 to residential single-family conventional 4 RC 4. Chris Grandel will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right, is the applicant here? Good evening.
Good evening. William L. Brown III, 2810 Brooklyn Road, Valrico, 33596. First, allow me to give you a little bit of background. I've been in front of this office and the Board of County Commissioners several times to argue against the small lot, big houses that have become to surround my tiny farm. My logic was the prevalence of agricultural land and large single-family lots in our neighborhood. I was ignored every time, and the houses were built on smaller and smaller lots. The math that I used to argue against them no longer holds true because now the prevalence of lots around me are small lots, big houses. So now I feel like I live in a fishbowl. And so myself and my two neighbors envision changing our property to the very same zoning that has been happening around us, which is RSC4. Someday we hope to sell this to a developer, and he'll do something similar to duplicating the cul-de-sac right next door to us on Hamlin Ridge. We do appreciate the staff's recommended approval, but we would like to voice our disagreement with two recommendations for the record. The first one is under paragraph 1.3. There's a statement, the developer will be required to improve the roadway between the project access and the nearest standard roadway. Recent development of almost 70 homes resulted in no improvements to the roadway. So we are asking for similar treatment of our potential development of possibly 14 homes.
Do you plan to develop it yourself, or you said you're going to sell it?
Potential development.
I see.
Second, under 1.4, there's a statement that says the applicant is advised to consider a slightly bigger lot size, 12,000 square feet, to meet the desired residential development pattern of the Garden Estates District. We are requesting a zoning change. We're not trying to define lot sizes. RSC4 allows for lots of 10,000 square feet. We just want to be bound to RSC4 zoning designation, nothing more or less. Furthermore, my research into Garden Estates indicates that this designation preceded the current future land use of Res 4. It is what was used to create our small farm and the ones around us, and it is now a moot point. None of the developments around us were held to this standard, and so therefore we would like that recommendation ignored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office. Development Services, please.
Good evening. Chris Grandel, Development Services. The request is to rezone 3 contiguous parcels totaling 4.85 acres, more or less, from ASC1 agricultural single family conventional to RSC4 residential single family conventional. The parcels are located at 2806, 2808, and 2810 Brooklyn Road at the northwest corner of Brooklyn Road and Hamlin Ridge Avenue. The underlying future land use category of the subject parcels are residential 4, res 4. The applicant has indicated the purpose of the rezoning is to sell the properties together to a residential developer. There are existing single-family residences on the site. The site is located in the urban service area, therefore Hillsborough County water and or wastewater will be available to serve the subject property. The adjacent properties contain a mix of residential, PD, RSC3, and RSC4 zoning districts. The surrounding uses in the area consist of single-family lots. Therefore, the rezoning of the subject parcel from ASC1 to RSC4 would be consistent with the existing zoning pattern of the area. Based on the above considerations, staff finds the requested RSC4 zoning district compatible with the existing zoning and development pattern in the area. There are no agency objections. Staff finds the request approvable. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Just two quick questions based on the applicant's testimony. He mentioned in your staff report, section 1.3, the section that says the developer will be required to make improvements to the roadway because Brookyn is substandard. That you don't consider that a condition, that's a requirement. Is that correct?
He's more of a transportation question.
Okay, and then the second one, while I have you, the second one is regarding the planning commission's comment that they would prefer a larger lot size, but the RSC4 district requires 10,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Yeah. Again, that would probably be best answered by the planning commission as well.
Okay.
All
All right, thank you.
You are correct. RSC4 does a require minimum lot size of 10,000.
Thank you so much. All right, planning commission, please.
And Mr. Ratliff is available if you want to ask a question regarding the road improvement.
All right, before we go to the planning commission, thank you. We'll go to Mr. Ratliff regarding the applicant's concern about improvements to the substandard Brookyn Road.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, for the record, James Ratliff, Transportation Review Section. The requirement is, again, as you pointed out, these are not zoning conditions. This was just an informational comment. The site will be treated the same way as any other project in that process. There would have to go through ooh, there is some bad feedback. Sorry about that. I'm going to slip off my ears and then talk. Essentially, the applicant would have to go through the same process as everyone else, which would be to obtain an administrative variance if they wanted to leave the road in the existing condition, or if they were able to make some improvements, but something less than the full typical section, that would be through the design exception process. Because this is a Euclidean project, the current process is that those reviews happen at the time of site plan review. So, there really would be no effect of, there really is no requirement being imposed at this time. We're simply informing them of a procedural, of a procedural process there.
All right, thank you so much. Now we'll go back to the planning commission, please.
Joanne Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated residential 4 in the future land use map. It is within the limits of the Brandon Community Plan, within the Garden Estates District, and within the urban service area. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policies 1.3 and 1.4 of the future land use element by providing growth within the urban service area that meets the minimum density requirement of 4 dwelling units per gross acre. The proposal meets the compatibility requirement of Policy 1.4 as the predominant character of the area is single-family residential dwellings at comparable densities. The proposal also meets the intensity of Objective 16 and its accompanying policies 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, and 16.10 that require new development, infill, and redevelopment to be compatible with the surrounding area in character, lot size, and density. In this case, the proposal is consistent with the general character of the surrounding area, which is low-density, single-family residential dwelling. Goal 12 and Objective 12.1 of the community design component in the future land use element requires new development to recognize the existing community and be designed to relate to and be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is medium to low density, single family, residential, and the proposal would be compatible with the existing development pattern. The proposed development is also consistent with the Brandon Community Plan and the livable communities element of the comprehensive plan. It meets the intent of Goal 6, Strategies 3, 4, and 5, which require each of the character districts to follow a specific development pattern and be compatible with the surrounding area. Although the subject property is located in the Garden Estates District of the Brandon Community Plan, where the predominant residential style is dwellings on half-acre lots or more, the proposed rezoning is compatible with the development pattern of the surrounding area, which contains a large number of parcels with RSC3 and RSC4 zoning designations. Based upon these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you so much. We'll turn to anyone that would like to speak in favor. Anyone in support of this application? Seeing no one in the room, no one online. Anyone in opposition to the request? One, no one. All right, Development Services, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, the applicant, you have 5 minutes if you'd like to say anything. All right, thank you then. With that, we'll close rezoning 21-0429 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D1, an application rezoning PD 19-1458. This is a remanded case. The applicant's Council Growers Incorporated. The request is rezoned from AR to Plan Development. Michelle Heinrich will, with county staff, will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right, before the applicant comes up, if I could ask, I understand Mr. Clark is on the line of the County Attorney's Office.
I'm here, Madam Hearing Officer.
Good evening, Mr. Clark. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. As you know, this case has been around a while, hence the 2019 application number, and has been heard by a different hearing officer who is no longer here. So that's how this case was assigned to me, which is fine. In reading all of the backup, and I've watched the Board of County Commissioners hearing from December 8th, where it was remanded back to this hearing, with the specific motion from Commissioner Myers that it was remanded to provide the applicant the opportunity to show how jobs will occur and how services will be offered in the Wimauma area. And I just want to make sure that before we get into the gist of all of this, that we are on proper ground to confine the hearing to that issue, because that's the reason the board remanded it back to the zoning hearing master.
Yes, Madam Hearing Officer. So as per usual, the hearing officer, you should try to constrain the subject matter that's being submitted to the grounds that the purpose of the remand as articulated by the board in their motion to remand. You're otherwise not constrained. The fact that this was done by a previous hearing officer does not constrain anything you can do in terms of your recommendation to the board. But yes, as a general rule, you should, arguments coming from the applicant or from any testimony from opponents or proponents should be aimed at the purpose of the remand.
All right, but any evidence, additional evidence, information is certainly able to be submitted into this record at this hearing.
Yes.
Whatever the applicant would like to submit is certainly eligible to be submitted into the hearing.
I would say yes. In general, I'm loath to constrain testimony before you. Obviously, the record is locked when it gets back to the board, but the purpose of the remand is to add additional materials into the record that the board will then review when it goes back before them. So with the general constraint that the arguments and testimony should be targeted toward the purpose of the board's remand, the hearing officer can receive new evidence and testimony on the subject matter.
As well as anyone who would like to testify in support or against, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. I appreciate your time. Please proceed.
Turn myself on, get used to that. Cami Corbett with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, representing the applicant Council Growers, Inc. That is an entity owned and managed by the Council family, which is a longtime landowner in the Wimauma Village area. And Mr. Pat Council was one of the framers of the Wimauma community plan and the future land use category. Given that direction that we just received, I'm going to go ahead in the interest of time and ask our presenters to focus on those issues. Ms. Isabel Albert is going to present to you testimony. We did revise our plan, so this is a little bit of a wrinkle. to what you were just talking about in terms of the very specific narrow issue. We are talking about community benefits though. And what we did do is we modified our plan to include several community benefits. There's a discussion ongoing in the future land use study for the WVR2 area about replacing the jobs requirement that's in the community plan with a community benefits component, and all that's not been adopted. I have personally attended meetings in the community plan in the WVR2, as has Mr. Steve Lutz from Eisenhower Property Group, and been listening to the community about things that they'd like to see. And we voluntarily have incorporated those into the plan, and we'll be presenting testimony and evidence on that. And then Steve Henry will just refresh everyone's recollection on what we're doing with transportation and how we've revised our design exception request. And then Steve Lutz will provide additional information regarding jobs and job creation.
Let me, before you keep going, I've read the entire backup. I've read your submittal, and none of it seems to, just to cut to the chase, none of it seems to address the question as to why this was remanded. And that is the job information and what job services will be provided in the Waimam area. You would agree, but based on your testimony, that the community benefit piece of it is not adopted and therefore not
Correct.
subject to the review in this process until it actually is adopted and you're subject to it. Is that correct?
It's certainly something that we can proffer. We're not suggesting that it has been adopted, but we are proffering it as part of our application, which is appropriate for us to do. And
100%.
Right. And we believe that part of what Commissioner Myers was requesting was what benefit is going to come to the community from this development. Having been at the hearing and listening to her, that's what we interpreted. And Mr. Lutz is prepared to testify to the jobs tonight at the hearing.
Okay. If you could just try to narrow the focus as the question has been asked for the remand, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Corbett, if you could sign in, please. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Isabel Albert with Half Associates. So as Cami was explaining, there's been a recent draft about this whole job and employment requirement. And in that draft, they have removed this whole employment requirement and have replaced it with a community benefit requirement. And for the spirit of the policy, although it is not approved, we felt like we could try to meet as much of that as meets the intent of that whole policy. And so therefore, that's why we provided these community benefits that we heard what the community wanted. And one of them was to have a multi-use trail path along the TICO easement, which is what we have provided in our site plan. They also talk in these community benefits, they talk about providing a park, which we've done so, which is adjacent to that multi-use trail. They also talk about providing utilities for for a school site, for the school board, which we also have provided and committed to. But in addition to that, importantly, is we also are committed to having 50 affordable housing within our development in the northern parcel. And as Cami also stated, that we are removing the design exception, and Steve Henry is going to go through that. But in terms of jobs and what's out there, you can't ignore the fact that Sun City Center has a huge commercial employment area. And then that is definitely something that we could be looking at, which previously was not being looked at because it was not part of the Waimama downtown. And so, we pulled this this information that, shows there's over 1 million acres, 1 million square footage of commercial, and then you go into the retail office. All of that is a very active community commercial center. And this is the Waimama, and we felt that was not sufficient just to look at. You do have to look at the big picture, which is right on the other side of 301. It's also an important area for competitive sites. That cannot also be ignored. These are competitive areas where they promote some kind of like industry generation. And so again, also, even though this was developed in 2007, the WVR2, the development hasn't really occurred until the last 10 years in the WVR2, where they started with one development, and I believe it was like 2010. But since then, it was like just recently, they started having more development, and that has just occurred as the market happened. And it was just a growth management that development has been coming in, and these applications have been coming in to meet this demand that's finally caught up. So this brings me to Steve Henry, and I'm here if you have any questions.
I don't at this time, but thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. In conjunction with the previous application, we had several design exceptions that were actually deemed approvable by the county engineer. We have since withdrawn those design exceptions. So what we are proposing now is to improve County Road 579. And basically what we're doing is providing all the major design elements of the TS7, which is what we were asking for the design exceptions to, which is from the Transportation Technical Manual. As you can see here, we've got the 12-foot lanes as opposed to what's existing, which is 10 foot out there. We're also doing the 8-foot shoulder with 5-foot paved that also serves as bike lanes. And then we're also adding the 5-foot shoulders, or excuse me, 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the road. So this is what will be done as a part of the development of the project. We're developers committing to doing this from our project access up to 674. That concludes my presentation unless you have any questions.
I don't, but thank you.
And I'll enter this into the record.
Thank you very much. If you could please sign in as well. Good evening.
Good evening, Steve Luce, 111 South Armenia, Suite 201, Eisenhower Property Group, and I have been sworn in. To address your comments about jobs, to keep in mind is that the WVR2 consultant has issued preliminary findings and recommendations to the Planning Commission staff and to the Board of County Commissioners, suggesting and recommending that the requirement that jobs be provided at the time of zoning and then preliminary plat and construction plans is not the appropriate way to look at how you enhance the downtown of Waimama. So what they're doing is try to trade off, in lieu of having a jobs requirement and involved with the WVR2 and approving and moving forward with zoning cases in WVR2, let's look at providing a number of community benefits that'll benefit the Waimama community. So what we've done is, Isabel has alluded to, is provide for one of the community benefits is a trail, one segment that we can control and contribute to a larger trail network that will get up to downtown Waimama. We did that. There was another community benefit that talks about providing for park space. We've added a minimum 5-acre park per plan. We've added in, and it hasn't necessarily been approved yet, but it is recommended that affordable housing be wrapped into these projects. And we are providing for 50 affordable housing lots within our community. And we also are going to do County Road 579 from Southfield Road up to 674, about a mile of road, to build it up to county standards and provide that improvement concurrent with and prior to the development of a school site as shown on our zoning site plan. And along with just the road improvements, we will provide public water and public sewer to that school at the time that they want to move forward with development. Those are all things that are being talked about in terms of community benefits and what this development would provide for the Waimama community. And we also add is that what else we are doing from a jobs perspective is that this project we estimate will generate, will cost, first of all, about $25 million to develop. It'll take 1 to 2 years of a contractor out on the site and all the subs to develop the site. And depending on whether or not it gets phased in as to different sort of phases or pods within the community, it could take 3 or 4 more years after that to completely build out the community and put the amenity center in and the other amenities I talked about. Then at that point, the home builder comes in and they will take anywhere between 3 to 7 years, depending on market conditions, to build out the community. So from start to end, it takes about 10 years and it'll probably generate in the neighborhood of 1,000 jobs, contract laborers to develop the community and then build the homes in the area. And finally, I would mention that the issue about jobs is that the homes and the rooftops have to come first. And so with this 516 lot development, will generate between 10 and 50 square feet per house, which will translate into roughly, 15,000 to a 30,000 square foot neighborhood retail center, which has, per the comp plan policies in WVR2, that retail should be located in downtown Wamama. So between the on-site amenities that we're proposing, the jobs that we create in developing the community, home builders create in developing the community, and the jobs that are going to, or the retail that's generated, there are a number of different aspects to this rezoning, which will enhance and help develop the downtown area of Wamala.
Let me just ask you real quick, what is your understanding of the status of that amendment that adds the community benefit?
They are back out doing public input.
Who
Of
is that?
the planning commission staff and their consultant. They went to the board in roughly February to do a transmittal of the WVR2 language to Tallahassee for review and come back theoretically for approval. But they continued it and asked for more evaluation, more public input, in part because of COVID. The board didn't feel like they had enough input. So now we're back in the public input phase. And so they're looking to go back to the board and get to final adoption by the end of this year.
I see. Okay.
So in the interim, we decided what can we do to try to enhance our application to try to address where the consultants were going and where we thought some of the county commissioners were going, is what is the council growers rezoning going to be doing for the community?
All right. Thank you for your testimony. If you could please sign in.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Here, this is Cameron Clark. May I speak real briefly? Just to add to what Mr. Luce stated, that all that's correct, that the board has extended the moratorium in order to take additional public input based on constraints on public participation that were caused by COVID. I appreciate that what's being presented regards community benefits, some of which were proposed as part of the presentation to the board earlier this year. However, to this point, those things have not been adopted. They were previously presented, and I'm not sure what the version will look like that ultimately comes back to the board, but just letting you know that Mr. Luce's assessment is correct. But at this point, we don't have a final version of what that language will look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I appreciate that clarification. All right, Ms. Corbett, did that conclude your presentation?
Cami Corbett again for the record. Yes, we would probably like to say, have some words on rebuttal though, just briefly.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Development Services, please.
Hi, good evening. This is Michelle Heinrich with Development Services. It sounds like you're pretty well informed of the background of the case. So in effort to save time, I won't go over that unless you have any questions.
I truly appreciate that perspective. Thank you.
I can't just put on the record that, as you know, this was remanded back to the board and that the applicants are looking at this being addressed more under the community benefits criteria, which has been well discussed as a pending comprehensive plan change. And they do have the items that they're proposing that differs from the previous proposal is a multimodal trail along the west side of the northern parcel that would be available for public use, a 5-acre park in the northern parcel, which would also be available for public use, a commitment to provide water and sewer connections to the proposed potential school parcel, to provide 50 affordable housing units in the northern parcel, and to remove the previous request for a design exception to County Road 579, and instead replace it with a condition that commits to certain improvements and allows for a future design exception if necessary for other requirements. There is no change in the number of units, the density transfer proposal, the general layout, or the access points. Planning Commission staff is still finding their proposal inconsistent, and the school board under this remand has changed their review comment to no longer supported. Given all of these factors, Development Services does not support the application under the remand proposal, and I'm available if you have any questions.
I don't have any at this time, but thank you. Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission, and also in the interest of time, I will not go back through all the history on this. It seems like we're all familiar with it here, but I will, for the record, state I will defer to the Planning Commission staff report on that. But of course, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Moving forward, the subject property is designated Waimama Village Residential 2, WVR2 on the future land use map, and is located within the rural area. It is located within the limits of the Waimama Community Plan. The application as proposed furthers a number of the goals, objectives within the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County, including the future land use element and the livable communities element. The applicant is requesting a plan development of 2 contiguous sites by utilizing a transfer of development rights to develop a maximum of 654 residential units and a residential support use. Both the sending and receiving areas are located within the WVR2 land use category, which is consistent with policy 32.10. The proposed plan development within the WVR2 land use, within the WVR2 designation is comparable to the existing development pattern in the area. The applicant is also meeting the clustering requirement as outlined in policy 48.1 and meets the intent of policy 48.2 by providing a residential support use. The application provides for a balanced transportation system as described in Goal 5 of the Waimama Community Plan. The applicant is also providing open space as described in Goal 2 of the Community Plan. Each of these site design components meet the vision of the Waimama Community Plan. As part of a previous request, the applicant provided an analysis to identify the non-residential entitlements located within the Waimama Community Plan boundary and the entitlements that have been consumed thus far by previous applications. Additionally, the applicant provided a synopsis of other employment opportunities, within a 7 to 11 mile radius of the proposed site, in which they feel demonstrate employment opportunities that would meet the demand of residential development within the WVR2 future land use category. Currently, there are no available jobs within Waimama to accommodate this plan development request. In order to comply with the employment requirements of WVR2, a total of 557 jobs would be needed to accommodate the 654 proposed dwelling units. The 654 proposed dwelling units. Therefore, the request is inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County. The request was remanded for the purpose of allowing the applicant an opportunity to address the employment requirements as outlined in the Waimama Village Community Plan. With this request, the applicant has provided supplemental information regarding community benefits. The applicant is providing a multi-use trail, a 5-acre public park, and a portion of the units are being reserved as affordable housing to meet the merits of community benefits. There is currently a study as well as an update to the Waimama Village Community Plan that contemplates requiring community benefits in the place of the employment requirements. The study is ongoing as the proposed language is still in draft form. The proposed language is scheduled to be heard by the Board of County Commissioners in August of this year. Planning Commission staff does acknowledge that the current draft does contemplate shifting away from the employment requirements to a community benefits requirement. However, the new language has not been adopted at this time. For that reason, Planning Commission staff cannot consider the material that the applicant has submitted as part of our evaluation and can only rely on adopted can only rely on adopted policy language. Based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
I don't have any at this time. What I'd like to do next is go back to Mr. Clark of the County Attorney's Office. I just want to ask you a question. Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark is on the line. Mr. Clark, can you hear us? Cameron Clark, can you hear us? You may be muted. Or possibly Mary Dorman.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, I'll hold my question. We'll keep going with the hearing and then I'll come back and hopefully we can find them. Let's go to anyone who would like to speak in favor. Anyone in support of this application? I see no one in the room. Is there anyone online? All right, anyone in opposition to this request? No one in the room? Anyone online? No one, okay. Development Services, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nothing further.
Okay. Did we find a county attorney?
Do we have Mr. Clark or Mary Dorman?
I'm here. Sorry, I had an audio problem. This is Cameron Clark.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clark. I appreciate it. I just want to, because this seems to be a dominant piece of this application in my review of the record. The Planning Commission talks a lot about the interpretation the Planning Commission Executive Director made regarding Policy 48.1 and the jobs provision and their authority to make it, and and this was a discussion at the December 8th Board of County Commissioner hearing, who was the final arbiter of that comprehensive plan. And at that hearing, Ms. Lundgren of the County Attorney's Office stated that the Board of County Commissioners has the authority to interpret the comprehensive plan, and that the board has agreed with the Planning Commission's Executive Director in terms of that interpretation. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's correct. And I know this subject matter is obviously the subject of litigation right now, but yes, Ms. Lundgren's statement at that time is the county's position. That's correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for the record as we move on. All right, then we'll go back to rebuttal. Ms. Corbett.
Cami Corbett again for the record. On that point, I think if you look in the record, you will see that was a discussion at the last zoning hearing master and whether or not the hearing master sitting in his capacity had the legal authority, and we submitted a memorandum of law in support of his authority to do so. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I'm sure sounds like you've thoroughly reviewed the record. So I think you've seen it. So first I want to address the school comment, and just to provide a little context for that. The school board has been having difficulty getting approval of school sites from Hillsborough County. And so they had historically been reviewing zonings, and when they had a large zoning like this, they would ask the developer to reserve a school site, and it's all subject to school siting at a later time. And so that was what this application was originally reviewed under, was they asked us for a site, we've reserved it. And we would like to continue the opportunity to reserve it. We just did not want to continue this application to have it go through the school siting process, which was the school board's request of us. They said, can you please go back and include all of the elements of the school siting into your rezoning? And we said, really, at this point, we've been in since 2019, and we really aren't in a position to do that, but we're willing to leave it available and for you to go back through school siting at that time. And so it's only because of their change in how they're doing things. It's not that they think that there's inherently anything wrong with this school site or anything wrong with the school being cited here. They just haven't gone through the school siting process. And as you heard, obviously, at the crux of the jobs issue is the interpretation of 48.1. And so that is, want to make sure I say on the record, we don't agree with the Planning Commission's interpretation. I think we've made that clear in the record, but just for the record in this hearing, since it was said again, what their interpretation is, we do not agree with it. I do have some revised proposed conditions I'm going to be submitting into the record that specifically address the changes that we made between this time and the last time that we submitted. We were at the zoning hearing master, we submitted conditions, but because we added these community benefits and we withdrew our design exception, it necessitated new conditions, and I'll be placing those into the record. And with that, I'll conclude our presentation unless you have any other questions.
I just want to make sure that the record is clear. And so in response to Commissioner Meyer's motion to remand this back, to ask how jobs will occur and services to be offered, you revised your plan. You added these community benefits, and those are based on a discussion of a draft of that plan category and things that might replace the jobs requirement. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
We did both that, and we provided additional testimony and evidence about the additional jobs in the surrounding area.
Yes,
And then also the demand that our interpretation of the plan is you build rooftops and then it generates demand for office and commercial and creates jobs that way and revitalizes it that way. So we're reiterating that is our interpretation of the plan of the 48.1. So we believe that we are creating jobs, not just with the construction of the development, but also by building the rooftops to generate the demand for future employment of other people in retail and office and industrial.
All right, I understand. Thank you. All right. Then with that, we will close rezoning PD 19-1458 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D2, rezoning plan development 20-1256. The applicant Sousa Lutz LLC. The request is rezoned from AS1 to plan development. Michelle Heinrich will provide staff recommendation under presentation by the applicant.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. This is a unique rezoning request in that the project before us does not neatly fit into the box of any one land use category. The primary use is that of a landscape contractor's nursery. And as the staff report indicates, all of the criteria for this particular use as per 6.11.109 of the LDC is satisfied. That's the existing business right now, the landscape contractor. Again, I could go through the checklist of criteria that's in the staff report. That's all satisfied there. The nursery use, as I said, is established and existing without problem, issue, or complaint. We are here for a code enforcement violation, but it has nothing to do with that part of the use. The secondary uses are more complicated. Back in about 2018, my client applied for and was granted a conditional use permit to allow for farm worker housing on the project. Farm worker housing is established legitimate use, and the conditions that are required for its legal implementation are spelled out in the LDC. I have a copy of the permit for the record to submit. I've actually got a whole packet of things that I'll hand over. The permit, you'll notice, has expired as of last year, but that's because we were in this process at the time. No need to renew it if we had the rezoning in the hopper. At some point subsequent to the issuance of the permit for farm worker housing, my client received notice from code enforcement of an issue with this permit, that being that the LDC calls out specific forms of housing for farm workers. They are prefab, they're barracks, they're modular, and my client's form of housing, which is fully functional and more than adequate, is actually recreational vehicles. That's what he has on site for farm worker housing. Hence a zoning violation and today's request, which is to allow for farm worker housing in the form of recreational vehicles in a planned development zoning district. The first point I want to make is that workforce or farm worker housing in the form of a recreational vehicle is an entirely legal means of providing housing. And we have a legal memorandum in this packet. It's a second exhibit, which I'll hand over. Secondly, the housing element of this operation is entirely voluntary, and it's provided as an optional benefit to employees. If there's any, idea that it's an untoward, you have to live here kind of situation, that's absolutely not it. And then third, it's worth noting that the recreational vehicles in question are fully functional for traveling and are used as an important facet of the project's operation, which is disaster response and assistance. This operator can load up his crews into these RVs go to areas hit by a hurricane, natural disaster, et cetera, and provide basically on-site assistance. I've got a letter signed by the owner to that end. As to the governance of the RVs on site, the third element of this PD would be an element of a recreational vehicle park. And to that end, we've agreed to conditions as to location of the RVs on the project, to the utility connections, drive aisle width, et cetera. All of again is detailed in the conditions. So those are the three elements of this PD. And as the zoning record will show, we have spent a tremendous amount of time, as has staff, which we very much appreciate, in getting to a cohesive plan that has support from development services, from the Planning Commission, and from all reviewing agencies. We do understand that this project is presented and reviewed de novo, and that there were, plenty of neighbors that got a letter, and I think they interpreted it as saying we plan to begin a workforce housing project right now, rather than the reality of the situation, which it's been there for years without issue or complaint. We are very conscious of that request and how it may be perceived. And to that end, on our site plan, which is right here. We've made some concessions that again are in the conditions. The housing area is this area here. This is where the RVs would be parked. It's actually where they are parked today. From the western boundary, the RVs will be no closer than 175 feet. 215 from the northern boundary, 190 from the south, and 250 feet from the west. That's the physical separation, in addition to all of the nursery materials, landscaping, et cetera, that's already on site. We've also agreed to the standard 6-foot PVC vinyl fence along the the east, west, and southern boundaries. From the north, there's really no buffering that we could make any sense of, because you can't see really past the contractor's office and warehouse here. Everything's effectively bordered and buffered from the north. So in summary, this is an entirely legal proposal, despite how it may sound, supported by all reviewing agencies. And the request, as I see it, is really simple, and that it boils down to that we're asking that recreational vehicles stand in place of the prefab or modular housing that is found in traditional workforce housing. With that, thank you. We kindly ask for your support. I'm here to answer any questions. And we do have one of the principals of the operation, Mr. Ray Rose, who's just going to put his name on the record so that he can testify if need be later on.
I just have a quick question. So just to make sure I understand. So you got, the property was issued a conditional use for farm worker housing for how many units?
That was for 12.
12 units. And so was it just a misunderstanding that he thought he could use a recreational vehicle for that?
I can speak with absolute certainty that it was an absolute, honest, innocent mistake.
And so 12 units are proposed, but it's really a recognition of that conditional use that was already approved? It's just
correct. If I had to put it simply, it's straightening out that conditional use permit.
I see.
Really more than anything else.
Okay. All right. Yes. If you could submit all that into the record, that would be helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and you said your client wants to put his name on the record.
This gentleman.
Yep, absolutely. If you just give your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Ronaldo Rose. I go by Ray, so that's why he called me Ray Rose. I live at 114 Southwest Line Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33606, and I can answer any questions you guys may have.
I don't have any additional questions, but thank you. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
so
very much.
All right, we will go to Development Services, please.
Good evening, Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. This is a rezoning of approximately 9.5 acres from AS1 to PD to allow for a landscaping contractor's nursery with associated seasonal residential uses. The property is located in the Res 1 future land use area. A landscaping contractor's nursery is a conditional use in the AS1 zoning district. The project meets or exceeds those requirements, which address the size of the operation and mitigating for impacts to adjacent residentially zoned or developed properties. A landscaping contractor's nursery does not account for the on-site residential beyond the property owner that the applicant is looking to approve, and for that reason, a PD rezoning is necessary. The type of residential that would be associated with an agricultural operation would be categorized as farm worker housing, which is permitted on or off-site from a farm in the Res 1 future land use category. However, the housing units permitted for the housing does not include RVs, which is another reason for this PD rezoning. The applicant proposes to retain the 12 RV units to be used for workers associated with the nursery. When reviewing this proposal against the farm worker housing regulations, the project does meet or exceed those requirements, with the exception of the permitted housing type, length of stay, and internal roadways, which will instead follow those used for RV parks. Most importantly, this includes the limited time duration for stay and that residents must be employed by the nursery. The general area is within the northern border of the Lutz community, with property to the north within Pasco County. Large lot single-family residential is present to the north, south, west, and east. As shown on the site plan that was shown by the applicant in his presentation, the RV park has been internally located with the nursery areas, ponds, and wetland areas around the perimeter of the project. Additionally, LDC required screening will also be provided. Planning Commission staff found the project to be consistent with the plan, and no objections from reviewing agencies were received. Therefore, staff does recommend approval subject to proposed conditions. And I would like to note on the record tonight that in those conditions, the requirements for certification 2D as in David and 2E as in Eric no longer are necessary, and we will provide you with a revised staff report striking those two requirements. I'm available if you have any questions.
No, my only question was whether AS1 permits farm worker housing, and you already answered that. So thank you. Appreciate it. Planning Commission, please.
Joanne Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated Residential 1 on the future land use map. It is located within the limits of the Lutz Community Plan. Objective 4 of the future land use element in policy 4.1 states that rural area provides areas for long-term agricultural uses and large lot, low-density rural residential uses. The proposed uses are all agriculturally related, as the landscape, nursery, and building, including storage, will be related to the agricultural operation on the site. The proposed plan development is therefore consistent with the intent of Objective 4 and its accompanying policies in the rural area. Objective 16 and its accompanying policies 16.2, 16.3, and 16.5 provide direction on achieving compatibility with surrounding land uses through various transitions, buffering, and site planning techniques. The applicant has provided several buffering and screening measures to mitigate for any adverse effects on the surrounding area. As per the site plan, 4.39 acres are being reserved for the landscape nursery area along the southern and eastern boundary of the site, which will mitigate impacts to the residential area. Along the western boundary of the site, the applicant is providing a 6-foot-high opaque fence. Policy 1.4 of the future land use element states that compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. In this case, the proposed uses are in keeping with the character of the rural area, and the activities and proposed uses are compatible with the surrounding area. Group quarters, temporary housing, and other residential structures for the use of permanent and/or temporary farm workers may be permitted in areas of agricultural activity. This provision is intended to preserve and promote agricultural uses by making it possible for farm workers to both work and reside on or near property devoted to agricultural uses. The proposed development meets the intent of policy 20.7. The request is consistent with the vision of the Lutz Community Plan by developing and supporting existing agricultural uses. Based upon these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you, and I'm available if you have any questions.
I don't at this time, but thank you. Anyone here that would like to testify in support? Anyone in favor of this application? See no one in the room. Anyone online? All right. Anyone opposed to this application?
Yes.
All right. We have one person online. Is that correct?
We have Frank Saza, who did sign up as the applicant team, but he may have signed up wrong. Frank, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You will need to enable your camera for this.
Okay. Is that working for you?
Yes, we can see you now.
Okay. Thank you. This is Frank Zaza. I reside at 19887 Sandbar Deer Loop, Lutz, Florida 33559. I reside in a new community, Deer Run Preserve, and my property is directly adjacent to the proposed changes. I am in clear view of the RVs that are on the property. I appreciate Mr. Malloy clarifying a few things. I wish he would have done that when I called his office 2 times and did not receive a return phone call. I recognize that this is a business. I'm in support of business. I am in support of any business that wants to improve the local area. But the RVs have grown in number. Mr. Malloy admittedly said that they are, in essence, have levies against them in terms of code enforcement. They have RVs on property, yet I have yet to see anything in regards to a nursery be done. I question why you would need 12 RVs to cover 4.39 acres of nursery to begin with. That could house upwards of 24 different people. I'm not a farmer. I wouldn't even consider myself a gardener, but I've been to several nurseries throughout my life, and there's yet to be one where that required farm workers to live on property. But again, that wouldn't be such an issue if he or if the applicant complied with the other restrictions, such as screening. Again, the RVs are there, but there's no fencing. There was mention of screening, but the only screening is there is anything that naturally existed. There's been no attempt to screen it from the new property. So myself and my neighbors are concerned, not just about property value in a brand new development, but about what is truly to come of this. Again, the mention or the cause of this is to house farm workers for a nursery, but there is no nursery on property at this particular point in time. And again, nor do I see the beginnings of a nursery, and it literally backs up to my property. So I think I would see that quite plainly. We have no problem with people living next door. We have no problem with RVs if done properly, if screened properly, both physically and in terms of the people living there. Just like any other neighborhood, you're concerned about your neighbors. But this seems to be a short-term rental, not necessarily farm worker housing. And the belief that this is for disaster recovery is somewhat funny to me, because if the permit was pulled from the initial application and they were in violation, they could have easily moved the RVs off the property, but they continue to have them be there. And again, it doesn't seem like this particular applicant has reached out to the neighbors. I did not receive a notice. The only thing we saw was the sign outside of the business. Our community, it looks like in some of the filings that I was able to pull up, that they submitted some notice to our homeowners association through an attorney's office that is not affiliated with our homeowners association at all. They contacted the developer of the land, but once the house is purchased, the developer doesn't really have any say over our particular property. So even though I am a neighbor, again, directly connected, I received no notice. I've called the attorney's office. My calls were not returned, just to ask questions before we even got to this particular point. I see no signs of a nursery. I only see RVs. And I see someone who has not attempted to comply with the current regulation, who has not reached out to their neighbors that share a property line. So I don't know why we would think that if this was approved, that they would comply with the appropriate screening requirements and requirements to have those type of those type of vehicles on their property. I'm all for building a nursery in my backyard. I think most neighbors would love to see that connected to their yard. It would be something beautiful to look at. But many of us question whether or not that is the true intent of this particular application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaza. I appreciate it. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone else online? No. Okay. All right. Then let's go back to county staff for just a moment. And did you have a chance to verify the notice?
The notice list we have was provided and through the property appraisers, and they noticed everybody on the list. I'm not sure again where Mr. Zaza lives with, and he says he's adjacent to that, but he was not on the list of people notified. I mean, we can certainly double check that post-hearing. If there's a notice issue, then certainly that would cause a need for to rehear the hearing. But at this point, we verified the notice and believe the notice is in order, but we'll double check to make sure there wasn't error with this.
And any additional comments just from the planning?
I would know there's a condition regarding 6-foot screening along the western boundary of the subject property.
All right. Then, Mr. Malloy, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
William Malloy again. Just a few very quick points. As to the question about whether or not the site requires 12 units of housing, it does not, obviously. Those residents, those workers can travel freely throughout the county to different projects on site, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not all located geographically on the project site. That's just where the housing occurs. That's the reasoning for the 12 RVs. Buffering and screening, of course, will come with approval of the zoning if it is approved. And then as to the idea of, if we don't do it, if it's an empty promise, that's why we're here. Code enforcement will come and find my client and we'll be back here again. So I am happy to meet with anyone or speak to anyone. And if they're still listening between now and the board hearing, if they care to reach out again, I'd just like to put that out there. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Then we'll close rezoning PD 20-1256 and go to the last case.
The final item is agenda item D3, major mod application 21-0024. The applicant is Joseph Strada. The request is a major modification of existing plan development. Steve Beachy will provide staff recommendation after your presentation by the applicant. I would notice we handed out a revised staff report with revisions to conditions. Those revisions deal with revised comments from EPC, so it's incorporated standard type EPC comments from the Environmental Protection Commission. We also modified some of the design requirements regarding the building. I believe the applicant will be submitting a graphic into the record regarding a similar building design they're doing for this in another area, the same type building they plan to develop here. So we've modified the conditions to recognize that and require the architectural style of the building to match that graphic and include that graphic on the site plan moving forward. So those are the nature of the request.
Thank you very much. All right. Good evening. The red light means it's on.
Okay,
There you go.
perfect.
Yep.
Good evening, Taylor Moser and Diego Duran with Sharp Design Studio, 12100 Racetrack Road, Tampa, Florida, 33626. Here on behalf of the applicant, Joe Strada, to request a major modification to the existing PD at 8185 East Sly Avenue. And Mr. Strada is here with us.
Madam Hearing Officer.
Oh, hold on one second.
She's not authorized to speak, so I don't know if the other gentleman is he authorized to speak, and can he?
Are you Mr. Strada?
Good afternoon, Diego Duran, Sharp Design Studio. I
Okay.
am the authorized.
Yeah, so now, that's all we need. We just needed to put on the record that he's authorizing her to speak, so we're good.
Yep, absolutely.
All right,
Sorry
thank you so much.
sorry for the interruption.
No problem.
Please continue.
Before I dive in, I would like to express our gratitude to each and every person at Hillsborough County that has helped us through this process. We sincerely appreciate all the time and effort it took to make it to today's hearing. And I do have a PowerPoint. Yep. You can go to the next slide, yes.
The subject property is 4.17 acres, currently zoned PD for business professional offices, more specifically, medical offices. Our request is to modify the approved use within the PD from BPO to contractor's office without open storage. The current approved site plan has 8 one-story offices for a total of 28,000 square feet with 153 parking spaces. The proposed site has one-story building composed of 6,000 square feet of office space and 26,500 square feet of warehouse for a total of 32,500 square feet and 23 parking spaces. To summarize the requested changes, we have requested that the use be changed to allow for a contractor's office without open storage. An overview of a few of the major changes are as follows. Increase the square footage by 4,500 square feet and eliminate 130 parking spaces. Reduce the hours of operation from the previously approved 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday to 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday only, and also align the site access with Emery Mill Drive, which was not shown on the site plan when the previous rezoning was approved, as it is recently built. The site has never been developed and currently sits vacant. To the north, there is an apartment complex zoned PD. To the east, there is a mobile home park zoned CN and undeveloped land zoned CI. To the south and west of the property, there are residences within the Woodland subdivision zoned RSC6. There will not be an inappropriate precedent set by approving this major modification. Within half a mile of the property, Within half a mile of the property, there are 11 instances of CI zoning, 4 instances of manufacturing zoning, 3 instances of CN zoning, and 3 instances of light industrial zoning, along with residential areas. Changing the use from BPO to contractor's office without open storage falls within the existing uses in the area. The property located at 8610 East Sly Avenue, about 890 feet from this property, also zoned PD, has 19 semi-truck loading bays. Our proposed site plan has 2. This modification conforms with the comprehensive plan and Hillsborough County's future land use designation for the area. The future land use classification is CMU 12, with typical uses being residential, community scale retail, commercial, office use, research corporate park uses, light industrial multipurpose, and clustered residential and/or mixed-use projects. The office space portion of the project is clearly listed as a future land use, but when you go to the primary purpose of light industrial, the purpose is to provide manufacturing, processing, assembly, warehousing, intensive commercial, and other related uses. As warehousing is included in light industrial, both the office space and warehouse portions of the project conform with the comprehensive plan. Furthermore, the proposed building will provide a buffer between the residential areas and the more intense commercial and industrial uses that are present to the east, where Sly Avenue intersects 301. Our proposed site plan and building aims to minimize the impacts on the Woodlands neighborhood and other residences. The building will not look like what you think of when you hear the word warehouse, but it will resemble the current headquarters of Strata Electric in Sanford, Florida, pictured here. The headquarters is larger and 2 stories, but similar architectural features will be utilized in the design phase of the project to give the building an overall office feel. There will be no outdoor storage on the property, and all materials will be contained in the warehouse and will not be seen by drivers or pedestrians passing the property. The residences to the south and west will have a large landscape buffer consisting of landscaping and a 6-foot-high wall that meets the requirements of the Land Development Code. An additional buffer has been added to the north of the property along East Sly Avenue to further suppress any impacts on the neighboring properties. Based on the transportation analysis done, the proposed project will decrease the number of daily trips by 642. East Sly Avenue will be less burdened by added traffic under this proposal. As previously mentioned, office hours will be Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., and no weekend office hours. There will also be minimal employee presence on site, as most employees will only be on site to pick up supplies from the warehouse and go to their off-site job assignments. In addition, the employees coming to site drive the small, well-kept vans, also pictured here. The 2 loading bays are enclosed on all 3 sides except for where the trucks would back in to make deliveries. This way, there's a buffer for noise and lights that come from the trucks making deliveries. The frequency of deliveries may vary, but should not be a daily occurrence. Mr. Strada, Diego, and I made 2 attempts to meet with the abutting property owners in a small group, but due to concerns with the COVID-19 pandemic, that was never scheduled. However, Diego and I coordinated with Ms. Sheila Mays, who lives at 8044 Deerwood Circle, directly behind the property, and attended an outdoor, socially distant meeting. Ms. Mays notified the entire neighborhood of the meeting, and there were about 30 to 50 people present. We distributed the site plan we had submitted at the time and renderings of the building. Through discussions with a few neighbors, there were a couple topics that were brought up multiple times. First, the neighbors wanted to make sure traffic would not be increased in the neighborhood. With the only access to the property being East Sly Avenue, the neighborhood would see very little traffic increase, if any at all. Ms. Casey O'Hearn at 8008 Glen Oak Court, to the west of the property, asked about security measures. We did not provide access to the neighborhood through the property and will keep the property lit after hours to deter unwanted activity on site. Another topic that multiple neighbors mentioned was the entry sign to the neighborhood. The sign is on the property that Mr. Strada owns, but as you can see on the proposed site plan, we have no intention of changing the sign in any way, and the neighborhood can enjoy it as it is now. In conclusion, the major modification of the current PD to allow for contractor's office without outside storage does not set an inappropriate precedent in the area, conforms with the comprehensive plan, and minimizes impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If you could please sign in. Yes. All right. Does that conclude your presentation? Mr. You not wanting to speak. All right. Thank you. Development Services, please.
Mr. Beachy, you are muted.
There we go. Hello, Steve Beachy, Development Services. I think the applicant did a good job of presenting the facts of what they're proposing to develop. It is a 4.6 acre site located on Sly and Wood Branch Drive. They're proposing to increase the development from 28,000 square feet to 32.5, and predominantly from a BPO types of uses to office warehouse. And some of the conditions that we have worked on with the applicant would be to change the nature of the warehouse, or the building that will be a warehouse and office, to tamping down the impacts on the adjacent neighborhood. One of the things that I would mention is that they've agreed to in the conditions to windows in the back will be in the south side of the property will be no higher than the sill will be at least 8 feet tall, which would keep any ability of workers in the warehouse from seeing into the backyards of the neighbors that are located to the south. And let's see, I think that is one of the main things I wanted to add that I didn't hear in the presentation. And again, they will be presenting they've committed to the architectural style of the building that they showed in their PowerPoint presentation, and that will be included in on the site plan as they submit it for certification. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
I don't have any at this time, but thank you. Let's hear from the Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated Community Mixed Use 12 on the future land use map. It is located within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan and is located within the urban service area. The CMU-12 future land use category allows for an FAR of up to 0.50 floor area ratio for any single or mixed use. The maximum overall allowable square footage on site is 90,822 square feet. The applicant is requesting a total of 32,500 square feet of non-residential uses. The requested square footage is well below what can be considered on the subject site. The property is surrounded by single-family lots to the west and south. A mobile home park is located to the east. In order to mitigate for nearby residential development, the site plan proposes landscape buffers and a 6-foot buffer wall along the northwestern and western parameters of the property boundary. A retention pond, landscape buffer, and 6-foot buffer wall are proposed along the southern border which is immediately adjacent to single-family residential lots. A TICO easement and ditch are currently located on the eastern portion of the site. A landscape buffer is proposed along the subject property's eastern boundary. Buffering and screening provides a gradual transition through site planning to adjacent residential development. The site plan provides an access onto East Sly Avenue, a collector. The development is not proposing an access onto Wood Ranch Drive, a local roadway. The application fulfills the intent of Objective 16 and Policy 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and 16.5, and is consistent with the Community Mixed Use 12 Future Land Use category. The subject property is located within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. The Community Plan seeks to promote and provide opportunities for business growth and jobs in the East Lake Orient Park community. The proposed contractor's office with warehousing provides employment and economic growth opportunities within the limits of the plan. The request is consistent with the vision of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. Based upon these considerations, Plan Commission staff finds the proposed major modification consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Department of Development Services. And I'm available for any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any questions at this time. We'll call for anyone that would like to speak either in favor or against this application. Seeing no one in the room, do we have anyone online?
The only person we had signed up was Joe Strada.
He's the applicant. All right. Okay, then we'll go back to county staff. Mr. Beachy, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close?
I do not. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Madam Hearing officer, just
Yes.
for the record, the applicant made a mention about sign on the property. I just want to note for the record that, through the PD process, we don't regulate or approve or permit signs through the zoning process. There's a separate permitting process for that. So again, I'm not sure. It sounded like they had a sign for the subdivision, which might be considered an off-site sign. But again, I want to be put on the record that again, the sign allowances, are not being, permitted or allowed as part of this PD, and that'll have to go through a separate permitting process, and we'll have to comply with those requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. All right, well, end it with rebuttal. If you have anything you want to add, you don't have to, but it's your opportunity. All right, thank you. Then with that, we'll close rezoning PD 21-0024 and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you.